who's been here for a little bit. By the way, that was Pokemon Platinum. That was Pokemon Platinum music. Anyone who's been here for a little bit will know that for the past like maybe month and a half, 2 months. Let me see when I uploaded that video to YouTube. For about maybe 2 months now, I have been working towards becoming good at Pokemon. It was December 10th. So it's been a full month. It's been a full month. It's been a month of me playing the Pokemon TCG, maybe a little bit longer, right? So we could say we've been playing the Pokemon TCG and learning the Pokemon TCG for about a month and a half. Coming from, of course, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering and Force of Will. I've tried a lot of card games, right? I tried Digimon. I tried the Naruto card game. I thought that shit was mad weird. I tried Dragon Ball Super. I've tried a good amount of card games. I'm a card game. I love me some card games. I try to enjoy them all. I try to find something good in every single one of them. But I also like to critique the problems I have with them. And this month and a half of learning the Pokemon TCG has been great. It's been really fun. This is supposed to be like the simplest TCG, and it feels that way. I can see why people call it that. But I didn't start with it, right? Everyone started with Pokemon and then moved on to Magic or moved on to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or moved on to Digimon. What is there out now? Gundam, right? Stuff like that. That's more intricate card games. This is the simplest card game in a sense, but it still has depth in the way you sequence your plays and cards. Sometimes during your opponent's turn, they just have it. Doesn't matter what you did, no matter what you do. They just have the gust for game. And that's one of the things we'll talk about. But after my first local, my friends told me, hey, you should download the Pokemon online game if you just want to grind a lot of games. We even have code cards if you need them. Here's some code cards. Just get in there, make whatever deck, probably make a meta deck, and get it started. And I did that. Not only did I do that, I did that shit big. When I started last ranked split, I was playing Alakazam. Because, I mean, the Zam was the deck that I have in paper currently. I currently have Zam and Mega Lucario in paper. And it felt comfortable and almost like cheating playing a one prize deck that didn't force situations where your opponent could ever really take two prizes naturally outside of something like a Pheasantipity or if you're playing the Mew as well. But I knew I wanted to play something meta. I wanted to actually try meta because if you don't try meta, you'll never understand if you are actually truly learning the game properly and if you are good enough on a meta strategies. When you play an off meta strategy or a tier 2 deck, tier 1.5 deck, whatever we call it in this game, you are essentially holding yourself back. It doesn't matter if you are really proficient at that strategy. You could also become proficient at the best strategies in the game, right? If you're playing the 10th best deck in the game instead of one of the top 3 decks in the game and becoming proficient at one of those top 3 decks, you're holding yourself back. If you're doing it because you just enjoy that Pokemon or you just enjoy that archetype or you enjoy that play style, that's okay. But I play card games. I've played every type of, archetype in a card game, whether that be control, combo, aggro, mid-range, right? I've tried all of the different styles of play when it comes to card games I enjoy, right? I've played control decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Played aggro and mid-range in Yu-Gi-Oh! Those kind of just go hand in hand. And I played combo in Yu-Gi-Oh! I've played all of them, right? So I wanted to try coming from something more aggro and almost combo-like in Alakazam that was also kind of a cheater deck. Once again, all one prizer. It's, I think, the strongest one prizer deck in the game, unless you want to consider Ethan's Typhlosion the strongest. I don't think it is. I wanted to try a more mid-rangey, almost control feeling meta deck, and that would be Dragapult. The options for the more controlling feeling meta decks were either Mega Kangaskhan Absol, Mega Kangaskhan Bouffalant, or Dragapult EX. I think Mega Kangaskhan Absol, I think Absol box is garbage. I think it's shit. I've never fucking lost to it. Mega Kangaskhan Bouffalant, on the other hand, I mean, Bouffalant's a fucking powerful card. Sometimes you just lose to, double Bouffalant, double Monkey Doria, and they're knocking back all your damage. It's very frustrating. So I didn't want to play that deck. I did want to try something more mid-rangey that wasn't relying on runaway draw, that had multiple angles and avenues to draw cards. Dracloaks are very powerful. So as you guys see here, I made it to Arceus rank. For anyone who doesn't know, if you're not a Pokemon enjoyer, that M up at top, that's a Master Ball. This is Master League. I'm in the highest rank in the game now. I just got here, like, barely. I got there on a 5-game win streak. And I kind of want to talk about, now that I made it to Master, how I'm feeling about the Pokemon TCG after about a month and a half, 2 months of playing and trying multiple decks. Because in paper, I have, like I said, Mega Lucario, Alakazam, and a dark deck with Mega Gengar in it that's garbage because Mega Gengar is not fucking good. That card is terrible. And I've also had the opportunity to play Ethan's Adventure because someone at Locals let me play it. So I've played a few of the decks. Unfortunately, I didn't play all three of the meta decks. I haven't learned Guardia. I haven't learned Goldango EX. Goldango EX is right there. I could just adjust it. I have tons of crafting credit, as you see up in the top corner. But Pokemon is really fun. For the most part, I've had a blast learning it. It feels as if you can really take yourself from the bottom of the... You could start all the way from the bottom if you click with a deck in ranked to fully mastering and learning the optimal sequencing for the game. The main thing about Pokemon TCG is the sequencing. I'll just scroll through my list a couple times here, and maybe we'll actually talk about my list and some of my choices, because you'll see that there are a few very strange choices in my list. We're only playing 2 Counter Catcher. We're not playing Monkey Dory, and we're not playing Blood Moon or Saluna. So we have a few strange choices. But what I was saying was the way that Pokemon feels in comparison to other card games is sometimes on a meta strategy, you can't continue to thrive and bring yourself into a winning position from learning the game, right? You can learn other strategy. You can learn how to play around other strategies with any deck in the game, right? Not including type weakness and type advantage in Pokemon. I really like that, right? A lot of the things I learned when I was playing Zam, other than that I hate Iono and I think it's bullshit, it's a lot worse against Dragapult. Depending on the point in the game. So with Alakazam, a lot of the things I learned in matchups very heavily transferred over to Dragapult, and they play completely different. Phantom Dive is nothing like Powerful Hands as an attack, but you can still kind of understand the game plan of how your deck is supposed to win versus the deck. What mons you're supposed to take out, what things you should be chasing after, what item cards you are looking to use, what setup you need versus a certain style of deck, right? I'm always trying to set up Double Your Cloak, 1 Dragapult, one other thing on bench, like a ghost and an empty spot. Or I'm trying to set up Dracloak, Dragapult, 2 ghosts, empty spot. Early game, that will also have a Budew. Because I'm going to let you guys know now, my fucking MVP, my GOAT, my king, literally was Budew. This is one of the most obnoxious fucking cards I have ever seen in such a simple and slow card game. I think the biggest problem with this card is that the game is so fucking slow. The game is so slow and it's so simplified in comparison to other card games that if you have something that just like cuts off, I don't know, a third of your good options in your deck, probably maybe a little more depending on how item reliant your deck is, this shit fucking hurts, right? Some of the more powerful decks in the game want to cheat out their stage 2s with something like a rare candy. Can't do that. A lot of decks rely on Ultra Ball until Lily's determination to get their mons that they're looking for, put them on bench or evolve with them, and then Lily's determination away the rest of a dead hand, right? You can't fucking do that when you get Budewed 3 to 4 turns in a row. And a lot of people are like, well, it's just like a stopgap sacrificial mon. Like you play it turn 1, you itchy something, and then you like start the game. No, I'll itchy someone like 3 or 4 times if they can't out my Budew. If you can't out my Budew, I'm going to fully set up until I can kill a key mon that you have. You're playing Zard, I'm gonna wait until you can get a Charmeleon out and maybe a Pidgey on bench. And I'm gonna Phantom Dive both. But until I can do that, I'm just gonna Buddy you over and over. I don't care. I'm gonna keep you off of your strong items that allow you to cheat out your Zard earlier, cheat out your Dusclopses and your Dusknoirs and your Pidgeot EX early. Budew is it's so good. I even play it in paper in my Alakazam list. I don't think I play Budew in the online list, but I play it in paper. Some of the powerful effects in this game coming from Yu-Gi-Oh! Really piss me off because of how simplified the game is. Budew is a great example of a card that I think is entirely too strong and really feels like it sculpts the early game in a lot of matchups. When it comes to these like very aggressive decks that are taking turns with the bomb. See, I even play it in something like Megalopony. Another good card, I guess we could just name a couple supporters because I think that those are like the most obnoxious of cards generally. Boss's Order, right? There has to be a gust effect in the game. I get it, and there's always been gust effects where you can, switch your opponent's Pokemon and take over the game, get in control, and choose what you're killing. Boss's Order feels very powerful. I'm glad this effect is on a fucking supporter. So you only get one per turn. And generally, supporters are not very easily searchable unless you're playing something that just searches any card from the deck, like a Pidgeot EX or the Festival lead deck with the Thwackies. You've got to work hard to get to this card or thin properly and sequence things right to draw into it off of some other draw effect you have that's not your Lily's Determination, that's not your Iono. And speaking of cards that I think are entirely too powerful and very frustrating depending on what part of the game you're on and how your deck functions in the late game, Iono. Iono in the early game is basically just like a hand reset if your hand is dog shit, or like you set up your bench with whatever you have, like you use a buddy, you play your basic, you had one basic out, you put an energy on, you ultra ball for something that's another basic, you put it out, and then you Iona and you draw a fresh 6 and you hope there's like one other play and you pass your turn, right? And you also disrupt whatever play your opponent was looking to make with their starting hand or with their turn 2, turn 3 hand if you saw them search for things. Hand disruption is very important. Because without any hand disruption, I think Pokemon would be an infinitely worse game. This game would blow absolute fucking ballsack if there was no hand disruption at all. Especially on a support, I think this is the best thing for it to be on. The same thing with the Gust effect, right? Because now you have to choose between your Gust effect. Generally, you have to choose between your Gust effect, or you have to choose between like you have to choose between your Gust or your disruption, right? And it's both on your own turn, which is relatively fair. I think that's okay. You know, there's card games where you're disrupting them during their turn on, you know, turn 0. That's really cool. Or turn 1, whatever you want to call it. That's really cool. Very fun and significantly more interactive. This game has less interaction, so these cards feel way more impactful. In the other game, it's a free reset. In the late game, if you're putting your opponent on like a prize trade where they're taking a bunch of big mons, but you have one prize attackers in the late game that can still clean up their board. Iono feels really fucked up because you can be at 4 prizes and your opponent can be at 1 and you can Iono them 2 or 3 times and you'll still win that game because you forced out a lot of their resources and then kept them off card advantage, right? You kept them off card advantage, you keep them away from their energies. Maybe you took out a couple main attackers, now they have to rebuild them. And after you do that, you Iono them. And then they start to build up their resources again and they're trying to get to their main attacker and they dawn for it or whatever and they can't play it yet. And then you just kill their little thing again after Ionoing them. And now they have to try to reset up all over again. And in that time period, you are accruing resources and taking more of their 1 prizes and possibly even, you know, 2 prize liabilities on the bench like a Pheasantipity or a Mew EX. This card is fucked up, but it's just part of the game. The same thing with Boss's Order. The one thing I will say is that because unfortunately Countercatcher still exists, some of the decks in the game, especially the one I play, don't actually have to choose between Iono and Boss's Order. You can just countercatch or something after you blow up a couple things with a ghost, or if you're playing from behind because you're playing a deck where your main first attacker, your earliest attacker is either a 1 prizer or is a 3 prizer. So you have access for a while if you use, like, play something like Megalopony, for instance. If you lose your Megalopony after taking out a big, you know, staged, big basic, right? You take out a big basic with her jet energy into main attack that does an additional 100 damage or whatever it is. I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. They kill your Megalopony. You couldn't switch it out of the active with a switch card with another jet energy. You can then countercatcher there for possibly another 2 or 3 prizes before they can turn the game back around. Then you start Ionoing them. Like I said, very fair, very fun. From the perspective of someone who plays Yu-Gi-Oh, I think Pokemon is relatively fair. Like, it feels like if your setup goes well early and you are playing a decent enough deck, right? Because I've lost to some absolute piles that I think are not very good. And this is a top 3 deck in the game. And I'm trying to learn my sequencing. And I feel like I'm sequencing relatively well. I may be missing a couple key cards. Like I said, I'm only playing the 1 rare candy. That is a choice. I'm playing 1 enhanced hammer that online. That is a choice. And I'm not playing, as you see here, the Blood Moon Ursaluna. Right, so there are some choices and 2 Budu instead of the 1 Budu, 1 Blood Moon Ursaluna. I'm also playing 3 Dust Skull, right? So I have a few choices in my deck that are very different from other Dragon Ball players, but it worked for me in making it to Master, where I played a couple mirror matches. I played against some solid decks, some very good decks like Goldango and Cerule Edge. I even played a couple Guardies on the way up with this deck. Piloted well. I think this is one of the best decks in the room and might be one of the best decks into the room in the next format. I want to talk about this game in comparison to Magic. Because one of the things I've always disliked about Magic, coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, unfortunately, is that when you play in Magic the Gathering, a lot of your hand in the early game is just completely dead. And by that I mean, if you draw a mix of lands and spells, half of your hand is dead on turn 1. Because turn 1, you can play a land and maybe play a spell. maybe one creature spell or some enchantment that you can put on the board that's a 1 mana enchantment, or you hold it for a removal spell like a Fatal Push or a Swords to Plowshares that are 1 mana, or a Lightning Bolt, whatever. A 1 mana removal spell. Let me just stop naming specific cards for anyone who doesn't come from Magic. You save it for a 1 mana removal spell. That feels fair because the power level of the game ramps up. But then, after you run out of card advantage, there's a steep drop off in quality of the game, right? So the problem is sometimes the quality of the game never even makes it to the apex because you get mana fucked out of the game early and you kept a hand with 3 lands, 4 spells, and you never find that 4th land and you're drawing 4 and 5 drops. That feels bad. That's just like a part of Magic the Gathering. Lands are a whole can of worms, a whole issue in themselves, but also a balancing mechanic and balancing mechanism that some people like. That's okay. I personally don't. I enjoy Magic. I enjoy the gameplay loop of Magic, I think, but I do, because Hearthstone is Magic without having to draw the mana, right? And a simpler version. If you just got a free mana every fucking turn in Magic the Gathering, it'd be great, because that's what Force of Will is, and I love Force of Will. I think Force of Will is a great game. It had its bad formats, and now it's basically fucking completely dead in the West, but yeah, I think it was a great game. I think it was really fun. Pokemon has energy, and when I first looked into Pokemon, that was my biggest crux. That's what I was super scared of. I was very worried that with energy, it would basically become Magic the Gathering, where I thought you needed energy for everything to happen. No. The upside, Pokemon feels like the perfect middle ground in between Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! You literally do everything on your turn 1 or turn 2, and then the game is basically determined. It's over. You know who've won. There's not really any major comebacks. There's not a lot of swingy nature to the game unless you are absolutely heavily side deck teching for that matchup to slow the game down to a simplified game state. Magic the Gathering, on the other hand, starts off very simplified game state and ramps its way up to a reasonable power level depending on the format. Legacy, vintage, real fucked up format, modern, even currently, real fucked up format, not really much you can do about it. Look at, something like Pioneer without the Explorer Infinite combo. I think that got banned. I think the Explorer Infinite combo, the Abzan Explorer, is banned. Wild Growth Walker with the... Never mind. Anyways, there was an Infinite and it was super stupid. You look at something like Pioneer, or you look at Standard, and relatively fair in comparison to the full power level and scope of how many cards and fucked up situations could happen in a game of Magic the Gathering for something like Commander, which basically everything is legal but at 1. Pokemon is that perfect middle ground where on your turn 1, there are a lot of actions you can do, and it feels like you're actively already setting up and playing the game, but the game's not determined, right? If you're going first, you can put out a couple Mon, you can Ultra Ball for, additional Mon, set up your hand, sculpt your turn, play maybe even a supporter Pokemon, something like a Mew to lower your hand really low and then draw cards, try to keep digging through your deck, a Squawkabilly, throw away your hand if it's completely dead to draw into better cards like your Artisans, your Buddy Poffins, your setup cards, your Nest Balls, Great Balls, whatever. All of those things feel extremely, extremely powerful. But going second, you have all those options plus the attack for something like Buddy. Or if you're playing like a 1-prizer deck or a deck that has a 1-prize package like Solrock Lunatone for Goldango and Mega Lucario. Even Ceruledge, I think, is playing the Rock package now, Solrock and Lunatone. And you also have access to your turn 1 supporter, right? Because going first, you can't use a supporter, but going second, you can, right? So you can gust up something if they put something on the bench with like a huge retreat cost, try to slow them down while you're setting up. You can Dawn, sculpt your hand, get everything you need, and get your extra basic if you started with the wrong basic. You can get something like a Hilda to get your energy for turn, which is necessary to eventually attack, plus one of your evolution Pokemon you need, or if you have a completely dead head, you can Iono or Lilith's Determination to advance your game state and keep going second, right? I think the way that it feels like they made sure to use energy as an afterthought, especially on a lot of modern cards where the energy costs for attacks of good cards are extremely fucking low, right? You look at something like Budu, which attacks for free, for Frizzle, by the way. That's free. That's what that means. It's very good in the early game. You look at something like Dragapult. This is a stage 2, and it needs 2 energy to attack or 1 energy for its not so great attack, right? That can maybe like knock out some one prizes or something that were early setup mons that got stuck on the board. Something like a Fan Rotom, right? Phantom Dive is your main attack and it only costs 2. This card is very pushed. And I think a lot of the better cards in the game feel like this. They're very pushed. You can look at even something like Charizard EX. Charizard EX ramps energy onto itself from the fucking deck, and then it only costs 2 to attack. And it's Burning Darkness attack does 30 more damage for each prize card your opponent's taken, right? So it does, sometimes it'll do 60 extra damage, 120 extra damage. That's pretty fucking good. Great card design, right? You look at something like Goldango, where you have a massive discard. Goldango EX, at least. You have a massive discard that you have to do to kill really big mons, but your damage could potentially be infinite. It doesn't matter. If you have fucking 26 energies, which I hope to God you're not playing 26 energies, but say you're playing, I don't know, 12 energies. You could discard 10 of them and deal 500 damage. I don't even think there's a mon that gets that high currently. I think the highest is like 380 in standard. That would be Mega Venusaur EX, right? So you'd have to discard, I'm bad at math, 50 times, fuck. Oh, wait, that wouldn't be 10. 10 times 50 is 5. That's not 500, is it? Oh, that is 500. Anyways, you'd have to discard some number of energies close to that. I don't know, 8. Let's just fucking take a guess. I'm not going to do head math right now. Fuck that. To get to enough damage to kill something, but on this card, you draw a card with its coin bonus ability once per turn, and if it's in your active, you draw 2 cards. These cards are very pushed, and it only needs 1 energy to attack, so you're not wasting energy attachments on this that you need for using its attack. All the mons in the game, other than Guard EX, which I hate, feel very well designed and fair as attackers, so that you can slim your attacker count down. You don't need an extremely high attacker count. You need 1 main attacker and, well, a couple copies, maybe all 4 of your 1 main attacker, and then 1 backup secondary attacker. A Moltres EX, a Cerule Edge, a Suicune, right? Just some other, especially for some decks at least, you need a secondary attacker. A deck like Dango doesn't really have a backup attacker. A deck like Dragapult, maybe I'm using bad examples, doesn't really fucking have a backup attacker, right? You have an early game attacker in the Budu, but you're sniping things off bench with the Dragapult. Like I said, though, back to the main point is the decks feel like they work and they get enough stuff done early that you feel like you're playing the game as long as you draw well enough, even though you're not drawing maybe into the energy to immediately start donking and killing things. But you are at least setting up so that when you get to that winning position, you can then start attacking. Because you don't need to take prizes as early as you think sometimes. There's definitely been games where I didn't take a prize until like turn 3, turn 4. Because I was buddy item locking them, or because we were both setting up and not trying to put Monkey Dory damage on the board, right? I was trying not to put Monkey Dory damage on the board. They weren't. But they didn't have a major, strong setup playing like Mega Kangaskhan Absol box with Monkey Dories in it, right? And they were just like, okay, well, I'm going to try to set up so that if he tries to kill something with Monkey Dory, if he tries to kill something with Dragapult, everything's already set up and ready. But here I am setting up my Dusk Skull line to get to Dusknoir, so I can just blow up 2 monkeys and then do whatever I want with the rest of the board. Just completely sweep it, clean it up, and end the game quickly, right? Or I guess slowly, because I'm item locking them before I do that. If I had to go back and learn one of these games from the beginning, whether it be Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, or Pokemon, I wouldn't regret my decision to have spent so much time in Yu-Gi-Oh, knowing that it doesn't feel like a card game anymore, but you still learn a lot of what matters in something like Pokemon. But I do wish I had learned Pokemon earlier, because a lot of the things that I've done wrong in Pokemon were more Pokemon specific things like prize trading, prize mapping, sequencing for searches into draws, right? Things that don't generally matter in Yu-Gi-Oh, because you don't have prizes. You don't have a certain part of your deck that's just completely removed from the game, and you have to play around that. So I think like I learned a lot in Yu-Gi-Oh, but playing Pokemon now after learning all that and after playing the game for so long feels more natural. I don't know if someone could come into Pokemon TCG and get to Master Rank in like a month of playing online and playing basically only 2 decks online. I really only played Dragapult and Zam, especially in ranked. I played a couple of them outside of ranked in like casual just to dick around and mess with fun stuff like this low kicks build because it's really funny. But I do have some cons. I think I talked about a few earlier, right? I talked about some of the powerful cards in the game, Badu, Iono, and Boss's Order feeling like extremely powerful, super obnoxious. And there was cards that existed before these that also felt really frustrating, right? There was item lock cards, there was stadium lock cards, there was supporter lock cards that have existed, right? There's giant discard cards like Zeros's Machinations, which I don't think is fucking good, by the way. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that. Unfair Stamp is a fucked up card. Zeros's Machinations, on the other hand, fucking dog shit. Don't play that card. It's literally not worth your time. So I'm gonna talk about my biggest gripe with the Pokemon TCG. I feel like if you've watched my streams, if you've been here, you already fucking know what it is. I actually hate prizing. I think prizing is the worst thing about. I think if prizing didn't exist, this would be my favorite card game. I'm gonna say that wholeheartedly. If there was a completely different system for prizing, which I'll explain what I would do, I would love this game. I think this game would be great. Now, the problem with pricing, the main problem, is that if you are playing key one-ofs that you need to be able to close out games in some situations, or tech cards that you need to beat certain matchups in some situations, and they are stuck in your prize, until you can get to those cards, the game is basically a wrap. It's an auto loss, especially if they got to the cards you needed to counter early. But if they slam down a mist energy on something and you're playing Alakazam and you're playing 2 enhanced hammer and they're both in prize, pack it up, buddy. You're playing Zam, you don't have a backup attacker. The game is over. Go home. Go home. Turn off the computer. Go boot up Fortnite or Marvel Rivals or Rocket League. Go play something else, right? Because you're very clearly not winning that game. You're playing a deck like Mega Lucario EX, where your main engine, your early game attacker, is going to be your Soul Rock and Lunatone. You prize 2 Lunatone, your Soul Rock cannot attack. You prize 2 Soul Rock, your Lunatone cannot draw you cards. I name that situation because it happened to me, I swear to you, back to back, 2 games in a row. One game I prized both Soul Rock, the next game I prized both Lunatone. It felt really bad. It feels fucking awful. And I understand why they don't want to just completely get rid of prizing, because it's become integral to the way the game works. And prizing in general is relatively good for the early attacker because you are gaining card advantage by killing things. That's pretty fucking cool. But what I would do is I would start printing cards in packs or in sets that say prize deck. And they're just watered down, weakened versions of effects of already decent played cards, right? Yeah, your deck plays Buddy Buddy Poffin. Cool. Here's a weaker, worse, shittier Buddy Buddy Poffin. Here's a weaker, shitty version of Artisan, of Ultra Ball, of some special energy, right? And those cards, you play 10 of them or you play 12 of them. You shuffle them, you take the top 6, boom, those are your prizes. And then you put the other ones back in your deck box or whatever. So there's still the variance of prizing, but the variance of prizing does not take anything out of your main deck. And that would completely fix prizing. You do have the issue where, like, if someone shuffles your deck with something like an Iono or a Judge, now your prize cards, the cards that say prize on them, are in your deck. So you got to remember to take them out between games for game 1 and game 2 if you're playing at like a big event where it's best of 3, right? But I think that's still a significantly better situation than playing Goldango EX and having 3 Gimmigholes prized. Significantly, right? Because if you have 3 Gimmigholes prized and you're playing Goldango EX, you're now hinging on Soul Rock and Lunatone to get you prizes early so you can try to get to a Gimmighoul. Like, you're like, give me a Gimmighoul, or the game is fucking over. Or if you're playing something along the lines, a Megalophony EX. By the way, this list only plays 2 Megalophony. That's very normal, I promise you. And I prize both my Baneri or both my Megalophony. All right, I'm just playing Kangaskhan Bomb now. I'm playing Kangaskhan plus Dusclops. Like, that's the fucking deck. And there's nothing you can do about that. That's not a good feeling. It's my least favorite feeling about Pokemon. The same way I feel about lands and them being bricky and them leading to inconsistencies in an otherwise extremely fun game is how I feel about prizing for Pokemon. Because there are a lot of times where I'm trying to do something that will lead to me winning a game and I'm missing one piece. Like, I'm trying to knock out 3 Pokemon in a turn, take a 4-prize turn, win the game because it's my only prize map that will win me the game. And my fucking Holucha, the thing that's going to allow me to Dusclops something that's 60 HP, because I'll Holucha one thing that's 60 HP and one thing that's 70, knocking one down to 60, one down to 50, Dusclops one, we both get a prize. Jet I'm sorry, Phantom Dive, their main attacker that's out or whatever. Kill that, take a 2 prize, it's an EX, and then boom, blow up the thing that I put 10 damage on that was 70 HP as a setup Pokemon. Take 4 prizes, the game is over. I've completely blown up their board or completely ruined all of their attackers. They don't have anything set up anymore, and they can't come back into the game. If I don't have Holicha in that situation, I can't do that. There was a game I posted on the YouTube where I specifically needed Holicha, Countercatcher, Boss. And I got it, and I won. There was a different game that didn't get posted because I was doing it on stream and I was listening to copyrighted audio where I needed Turo, Countercatcher with Holucha. I had the Countercatcher, but my Turo wasn't prize, so the game was completely lost. I could not win from that point. There was no winning, and it was to no fault of my own. I built the deck properly, and I was digging through the deck to draw the card, but the card was not in my deck. Thank you, Prison. That's the feeling. That's the situation that I refer to that I don't feel is pretty good. But otherwise, I think this game is great. I think this is probably the most fun I've had playing a card game in a couple years. I recently came back to Yu-Gi-Oh! And since I started playing Pokemon TCG, I haven't even looked at Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. The deck that I was looking to make in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is out. Killer Tune / Cool Tune looks so fucking sick. Yummies and Master Duel now. I haven't done either. I've had no drive to play another card game. This game is so fun, and I'm upset with myself that I didn't try it earlier. I'm 30 years old, barely fucking playing the Pokemon TCG. It's insane to think about. So if you're new to the Pokemon TCG, leave it down below in the comment section, like the video, subscribe to my channel. I'll probably be posting like funny videos of decks I'll try on the Pokemon TCG live. Maybe I'll do locals reports if I decide to go again. I haven't been going as often, but I should remember to go, especially once rotation happens and we get Ascended Heroes in Perfect Order, which the next 2 sets coming up this month, which my local retailers have been selling early, unfortunately, and I didn't know. And Perfect Order, which is in March. Rotation will be in April. Maybe I'll be doing more Pokemon TCG content. Maybe I'll do more Pokemon TCG live content. Subscribe. I'm a yapper. We'll at least be yapping, and hopefully I yap enough that you guys will enjoy it. If you're not new to Pokemon and you're looking at a new Pokemon player's experience and you have some things to say, leave them down below as well, right? Tell me like if I'm full of shit or wrong on something, or if there's some other perspective that I need to see when it comes to some of the things I dislike or that I do like about the Pokemon TCG that maybe you don't. Like the video, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. I think I said that more than enough. Anyways, this has been Beanie Thuggish for the YouTubes, talking about my experience as a new player with the Pokemon TCG, signing out and saying peace.